And now it's time for something quite different, because we have the honor of having two commissioners here as guests, both the Swedish Commissioner Jessika Roswall and the Commissioner for Agriculture Christophe Hansen. And we will have an hour with you. You will both have some introduction, and then we will have hopefully a good conversation and a Q&A session. And I would like to start with you, Christophe. So you're welcome to come up on the stage. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
In front of you, you have 150 representatives from the Swedish agriculture, forestry, and horticulture sector, and some guests also. But you also have representatives in front of you from a land of opportunities.
Very good.
And I think that's maybe a bit different, at least what I hear from when I meet colleagues from other member states in Brussels. There are some quite significant differences from the Swedish discussion on where we are in the green sector. We can look at it in different perspectives. I think we are the only country, and that's actually thanks to the minister, who have a food strategy that have a very broad political backup in the parliament that says that we should increase our production in Sweden. Given that the starting point is, as we talked about just before lunch, that we import half of the consumption here. We have land available, we have farmers available, they are well educated, they want to invest and increase their production. But we also have a very high consumer confidence, and we have worked for quite a long time to educate and inform the consumers about special added values from Swedish production. And I think in most countries there is a preference for domestic products, but we have also actually managed to motivate Swedish consumers to pay quite often an extra premium for Swedish produced products. So there is a lot of opportunities. What we need is a long-time stability on the bottom line. We had some challenges with that, and we also need, which I know is one of your favorite subjects, simplification.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So please, the stage is yours for a while, and I'll be back later.
Thank you very much, Palle, and first of all, ladies and gentlemen, for me it is a great pleasure to be with you here today. And when Lennart and Palle invited me to come to this General Assembly, it was only a little bit tricky to find the place and the time in my agenda. Yesterday we had the Agri-Fish Council where Peter was as well there, and then immediately afterwards I had to leave, and tomorrow we have as well, again, the College of the Commissioners together with Jessika. So it is a little bit challenging, but for me it was very important to go to the member states, because our agriculture is so diverse, so rich in the European Union, and you can't compare the agriculture from one region to another, not from one country to another. I go, for example, this week as well to Cyprus, which will be a complete different story than Sweden, and nonetheless I think it is very important that we discuss together as well about the challenges but also the opportunities for our agriculture, food and forestry sector, and I think it is very important that to see as well the farmers and the foresters that want to work for a healthy environment, and I think it is very important to say that, because a farmer and the forester needs as well healthy soil, needs healthy water, and as well sufficiently water, and I think that is something we need to work together on. Also biodiversity, pollinators. When we came here we saw next to the rapeseed field as well the beehives, so I think it is very important that this works together. So I'm very glad that you see this as well as a unity, that it is a green economy, that what our farmers and foresters are doing. And for me, as I said, it is very good to be on the ground. I myself am a farmer's brother and the farmer's son, so I know it as well from first hand about the beauty of the job, but as well about the hardship of the job. So I think that is something that has evolved over the years, and there we have, and I will come, you know, you just said it, Palle, simplification is one of my dadas, but it is in general one of the key priorities for the European Commission in this mandate to come with real simplification. And also I think you have probably took a note of the vision for the future of agriculture and food that we presented in February, which is the roadmap for our future initiatives, and I think it is there's one key point that is very strong for me, the generational renewal, because we need to entice our youth again to take up the job, because currently we have in the European Union less than 12% of EU farmers that are below the age of 40. Here in Sweden it's the same story, and the average age of farmers is over 57 years of age, and we have to ask ourselves the question, why is that so? And if we don't change these conditions for our farmers, when we don't make the job more attractive, and I will come to different points that where we address this, well, we will not be able to feed our society. We will not remain a continent with food security, and that is, of course, a very strong point where we need to deliver, especially in the very tricky geopolitical times. And also I think what the aim of this vision is that to make the sector again more attractive, more competitive, sustainable as well, and fair for the current and for the future generations, and that is very important. And one of the main concerns our farmers expressed last year when they took it to the streets, here in Sweden it was rather calm, as I heard, but nonetheless there were a lot of farmers protesting in the streets, and there was fairer prices for their products, more reciprocity in trade, and the excessive administrative burden. And on the 14th of May, we have presented our first simplification package that is really going to the agriculture sector. And it focuses on streamlining the support for smaller and medium-sized farms by a greater use of simplified payments there, also boosting competitiveness through improved and simplified planning and access to financial instruments, and also on-farm simplification and streamlining of requirements, including the adjustments of the CLP conditionalities, and there is a lot in, but just to give you a few examples, for example, on the so-called GAEC 1, when it comes to permanent grassland, currently when you had grassland longer than 5 years, it became permanent grassland and you couldn't plow it around anymore. And this, of course, is a devaluation of your land as well. We extended this now to 7 years. This is the proposal of the Commission, in order to avoid that plowing around is just done in order to remain the status. Sometimes then the grass stays longer, and I think this is even for the environment better, and of course from an agronomic point of view as well better. And we have also proposed, for example, on the point of animal welfare. I know that in Sweden you are going above what is the minimum required of the European Union, and so here we give the member states the possibility as well to compensate farmers for going beyond that, and I think that is something very important for the front runners in animal health that you are here in Sweden. And also the proposal in the simplification package includes a provision setting out this. Also this could open the way for Swedish farmers for the increased cost of animal-friendly farming practices, and I think that is very important. We have also simplification on, as I said, for the conditionality on 3 of the GAECs, but we have also proposed for organic farmers that they are out for 5 of the GAECs, because we say this is green by definition, so they shouldn't demonstrate something on the organics regulation and again do it on the other side. Also, we have given the member states the possibility for a better risk management, so they can use 3% of their annual CAP money for risk management. For example, if there was an animal disease, foot and mouth disease is going around in Europe, that the member state can then effectively compensate that. So this is just an example, but we have as well in other member states the problems with droughts, with floods and other extreme weather events. Maybe some words on the future common agriculture policy that we will try to propose at the same moment as the future multi-annual financial framework, and our goal is to maintain the common agriculture policy as the key tool to support farmers and ensuring that it is simpler and that it provides tools and resources needed to innovate and to grow. And the need to design a future CAP, this one should be more targeted and finds as well a better balance between incentives, regulations and investments. For me, when I'm asked who are the farmers most at need, I would say young and new farmers, because we need to encourage them even more to take up the task. I would also say family farms, and I would say farmers in regions with natural constraints. And I think there as well you have, I think almost 1/3 of your territory is areas with national constraints, so that they should be supported better, in my opinion. And also I think some are saying, well, we have to change entirely the complete common agriculture policy. And I say that might sound good on paper, but our farmers have as well done investments, because some say we have to get away from the hectare-based payments. I say the bank gave a loan to the farmer on the basis that they get this revenue. If we now change this, well, this security is gone, and we might push certain farms into economic inviability, and I think that is to be avoided, and that is what where I strongly say we need to go for an evolution of the common agriculture policy. It has shown over the last 6 decades that it works, that it delivers on food security, on fair income for farmers. We should do an evolution rather than a revolution. I think that is very important, and that is what we are aiming for. And then maybe some words, because we were saying that Jessika and myself are working very closely together. This is also the case for forestry and for bioeconomy, and I am of course aware that forestry is a very important sector in Sweden, and I'm just back from an on-spot visit, not only at the Swedish dairy farm, but as well we went to the forest and we planted even some trees. So it was really hands-on, I would say. And there I learned as well that the Swedes have a long and strong bond with their forests, and that it is also part of your cultural identity. And the farm in question had as well, it was a little bit like a bank account, the forests. When there is an investment to be done and then a barn needs to be built, well, then they cut down a forest and finance it by that. So it is something very important to say that this contributes as well during as a stability mechanism. And during my discussions with farmers, I also understood that there is a broad consensus that we need more sustainable forest management and all dimensions, so of sustainability, the environmental, the social, and the economic one need to be combined and balanced in that sense. And for an informed policy making, I believe we need the best available data and information, and I learned that Sweden collects forest data for over 100 years already, and that, I have to say, is quite impressive. And my vision for the agri-food sector is to create an opportunity to strengthen the role of EU farmers and foresters. And as the basis of this, there is the bioeconomy, not only with forests, where I visited, for example, as well, a bioproduct mill in Finland, and it is, I have to say, it is truly impressive what can all be done out of wood, biochemicals, packaging, and this is high added value. These are sustainably managed forests, and this is as well an additional income for our farmers, because farmers are often as well forest owners, like here in Sweden, and I think so we have to grasp it. Also, there is a huge potential when it comes to energy production. I think when we say that we need to decarbonize our economy, agriculture and forestry is part of the economy. I think there's a huge untapped potential, for example, when it comes to biogas production. We were discussing there are a little bit of problems here as well with the national legislation when it comes to the cows. They need to be on the grass. It would be easier for biogas, of course, to have them inside, but that is another part. But I'm speaking as well generally for Europe. There is a lot of opportunity also for biofuels made out of certain crops that you grow. I think there is a huge potential, and we need as well to work at all levels to grasp these possibilities and those additional income. And Jessika is, of course, in the lead for this bioeconomy, and we have established a very close cooperation, and we also both agree to develop the potential of the bioeconomy for contributing as well for new and sustainable business models. And in that spirit, in the vision for agriculture and food, we make already an explicit and important reference to this bioeconomy. And I'm looking, of course, forward to the exchange with you. I told you that simplification is a big priority, not only for me, but as well for the entire European Commission. The package that we have proposed is likely to bring 1.6 billion annually of less cost for administrative burden for our farmers. So this is quite substantial. It still needs to be approved by the Council and by the European Parliament, but I think it is very important that we deliver this now quickly. I am very confident if we do so that it can already be felt on the ground at the farm level as from next year. And also I think what is very important, I traveled meanwhile to 17 member states. A lot of the concerns that I get is not only the complexity of the common agriculture policy. It is also other policy areas, environment, health, national and regional requirements. So I think we need to work on all levels to get this simplification really done. I know sometimes for the administrations it's a little bit difficult, that they are reluctant when we speak, for example, about digitalization, that there are some concerns, but I think there is a huge potential for simplification. We have introduced as well the principle once communicated, multiple times used, where that means that the farmer has a certain information on his land that he communicates once, and then the different administrations, if it's environment administration, water administration, just can get it there, and the farmer gets off that he or she has to repeat these notifications. The same goes for the controls. Currently, farmers often face 4, 5, 6 times a year controls on the farm from different administrations. That we say clearly it has to be one control annually, because this as well is not only a burden for the farmer, because then they can't work at that very moment, but also it's a huge stress factor at that moment. And I think that we have to reduce, because we need to make the life of the farmers easier. That is what we are committed, and that is why we will as well be presenting a second simplification package on broader policy areas by the end of the year that also come down to the farm. That is our ambition, and now I'm looking forward to a good exchange and the questions from your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher. I think one of the targets we had for this visit you had this morning was to explain the special and the close link between private forest ownership and agriculture, and what we do in forest, and we restrict the ability to manage and harvest forest. We also restrict agriculture. That was one of the target. We can tick that box of your speech, that you are understood that. So.
Yes.
You will be back in a few minutes, but first, Jessika, please come up on the stage. Och jag vet faktiskt inte vem av oss som är mest stolt över att du är här, men jag är väldigt stolt i varje fall.
Så det är nog jag faktiskt.
Jag tror det är unikt att vi har en svensk kommissionär här. Det är absolut unikt att vi har 2 kommissionärer. Så att,
ja. Now we're talking about you.
And it's in good ways. So. Och vi har också stora förväntningar på... Vi har sett att ni samarbetar väldigt väl, du och Christophe. Vi vet att ditt område är väldigt viktigt för oss också, miljö och vatten. Och vi har stora förväntningar på dig också. Men,
gläder mig.
Så du får introducera dig. Så.
Tack Palle, tack för introduktionen. Men jag har också stora förväntningar på mig, men nu känner jag trycket. Men ett stort tack för möjligheten att få vara här idag. Några av er känner ju mig sedan tidigare. Jag tänkte bara börja med att säga också, för mig har det alltid varit viktigt, och vi har pratat om det tidigare, om hur vi ska höja den svenska rösten i Bryssel. Och här är ju LRF ett tydligt exempel på hur man kan få genomslag i Europapolitiken. Och det gör ni bra, och jag vill bara fortsätta med det. Men jag har ju då fått äran och möjligheten att bli kommissionär då med ansvar för miljö, vattenresiliens och en konkurrenskraftig cirkulär ekonomi. Och det är de frågorna jag tänkte lyfta här idag, och hur viktiga de är i perspektivet för jord- och skogsbruket. But first, Christophe speaks many languages, not Swedish yet, but I would like to underline how very glad I am to be here together with you, Christophe. Our two portfolios are very closely linked together, and I believe that the meetings we have had also show the importance on how the agriculture and forestry are working here in Sweden and Europe together. As well as Swedish farmers and forest owners are working with long-time sustainability in mind, and you saw that. Obviously, you also saw that together today with Minister Peter Kullgren also. And I'm very happy that we could show you that today. Now I will continue in Swedish, unfortunately. Men Christophe har ju gett en utblick över vad kommissionens arbete, just prioriteringarna på det jordbrukssidan är. Och inte minst inom det arbetet som hela kommissionen och Christophe leder kring förenklingsarbetet. Och med den nya visionen som vi fattat beslut om, och också förberedelserna lite grann inför nästa CAP. Jag skulle säga att det är väl, ni känner ju igen det, att det är väl ingen hemlighet att miljöarbetet och jordbruket ibland har ställts emot varandra. Kanske särskilt också under förra kommissionens mandatperiod. Jag ska säga jag minns särskilt, några av er har hört mig säga det förut, ett möte som jag och Christophe hade tidigt innan vi ens hade blivit kommissionärer, när vi var tillsammans på generaldirektoratet för jordbruk i Bryssel, och där generaldirektören säger att han var positivt. Alltså han var förvånad på ett positivt sätt att vi var där tillsammans. Det gav mig så mycket inblick i att vi behöver verkligen, att det finns en förbättringspotential att jobba tillsammans. För så här ska det såklart inte vara. Jag och Christophe har från dag ett jobbat med att försöka bryta det, och vi gör väldigt många saker tillsammans. Ni vet ju att miljö och jordbruk inte är motpoler, utan har tvärtom samma mål. Det vill säga, hur kan vi ha en stark och hälsosam miljö och natur som vi kan leva på nu och i framtiden. Och det är ett långsiktigt arbete, och om det är någon som förstår långsiktighet så är det ju ni. Ni tänker ju bortom nästa skörd, ni tänker hur ni lämnar över jord och vår mark till framtida generationer. Till skillnad från oss politiker som tänker mandatperioder, men det är en annan sak. Men i ett osäkert, och jag tittar på Peter, men det förstår ni. Ja. Men i ett osäkert omvärldsläge så är ju EU och Sverige allt mer beroende av jordbruket. Det ni gör är ju viktigare än någonsin, både för att säkra livsmedelsproduktionen, men också för att vårda och säkra vår miljö. De här två uppdragen, produktion och förvaltning, går hand i hand. Vi kan inte bruka vår jord utan vår natur, och vi kan inte möta våra klimat- och miljöutmaningar utan jordbrukare. Sanningen är ju att jordbruket ofta är de som står i första sektorn som drabbas först när naturen är i obalans. Utarmad jord leder till lägre skördar, högre kostnader och större sårbarheter vid extremvärden. Och för de gröna näringarna så är det tydligt att det behövs ett friskt ekosystem, och det är grundförutsättningarna för långsiktig hållbarhet och också ekonomisk stabilitet. EUs politik stöder hållbara metoder inom jordbruket. Christophe talar lite om det, men det räcker inte. Vi behöver också nya marknadsbaserade lösningar som skapar de här incitamenten för att bidra till de positiva effekterna för miljön. Och det här jag tänkte göra några nedslag i min egen portfölj. Jag tänkte börja med att lyfta bioekonomin. Det är en potential som ni är väldigt bekanta med, och som jag och en av de första sakerna Peter Kullgren tog upp med mig när jag var, det var typ andra dagen på jobbet, just bioekonomin. Jag ska säga, det finns ett nytt europeiskt politiskt intresse för detta. I Sverige har det funnits länge, men det finns här en genuin också möjlighet för alla oss att vara med och påverka och dra nytta av den här framtidspotentialen. I Sverige vet vi hur viktig bioekonomin är, och det har vi anledning att vara stolta över. Men också ska jag säga, om vi tittar på en europeisk perspektiv så är bioekonomin en stor sektor redan idag. Ungefär 5% av EUs BNP, 10% av alla anställda. Det är ungefär lika stort som bilindustrin. Det kan man bara komma ihåg när man vill hålla på med siffror. Och i en tid då som vi lever i nu som är väldigt osäker så tror jag, eller så är det extra viktigt att stärka vår resiliens och vår motståndskraft och vår konkurrenskraft. Och det här är ett tydligt exempel på där vi kan göra både och. För att vi har i Europa en resurs, en fantastisk resurs. Vi har en industriell bas här i Europa. Vi har också väldigt mycket erfarenheter och kunskap som vi ska dra nytta av. Därför kommer jag i slutet av året presentera en strategi för bioekonomin med just målet att stärka Europas motståndskraft och konkurrenskraft. Skapa jobb, hitta nya och innovativa sätt att stärka våra resurser. Här hoppas jag och tror och vet att LRF kommer att fortsätta vara en aktiv och konstruktiv röst i det här förberedande arbetet. Och jag hoppas också att ni kan hjälpa till att ta fram och lyfta de möjligheter som finns. När jag nyligen besökte Karlstad, och det är faktiskt inte för att Peter Kurgen är här idag som jag lyfte Karlstad, men då blev jag så imponerad över det är ett företag som tillverkar fiberkorkar i världsklass. Jag vet att ni vet vilka möjligheter sektorn har. Men just att byta ut fossila produkter, byta ut plast mot produkter som både minskar utsläppen och minskar miljöpåverkan. Det är precis det som vi behöver. Det finns också en rad andra möjligheter inom detta. Biobaserad teknik, jordbruk som används till medicin, biobaserade växtskyddsmedel och bioplaster. Jag kan fortsätta länge som helst, men jag ska inte använda all min tid till detta. Utan jag vill också säga någonting om en annan sak som är i min titel. Det är vatten. Jag är den första kommissionären som har vatten, och måste dricka lite. I min titel. Och jag vill säga, varför jag skryta med det? Det är ingen slump, utan vatten har blivit en avgörande fråga för oss alla. Vi ser det idag. Vi har vattenbrist, vi har föroreningar, vi har torka, vi har översvämningar. Det här är alltså inte ett framtidshot. Det här är en verklighet vi ser idag. Och det riskerar att bara bli värre. Och vattenfrågan är, skulle jag säga, lika viktig som klimatfrågan, lika viktig eller avgörande som energifrågan. Och det är ingen del av Europa som är förskonade, vare sig från torka eller översvämningar. När jag växte upp så pratade man om 100-årsregn, och till och med för ett tag sedan hörde jag i Norge det var 1000-årsregn. Men hur som helst, det vi ser nu runt om i Europa, det är med torka och översvämningar. Det är ju det nya normala, och ni vet ju vad konsekvenserna är av den torka som vi ser. Vi ser så den lite idag. Jag har besökt många andra länder i norra Europa som har utmaningar med torka. Ni minns säkert för några år sedan, 2018 och andra delar. Men vi vet också att det kommer att bli värre. Så därför måste vi agera nu. Och det är också bakgrunden till att vi ska presentera nästa vecka en strategi för vattenresiliens. Det här handlar inte om ny lagstiftning. Men det handlar om att implementera lagstiftning vi har på ett bättre sätt. Det handlar om hur vi ska använda vattnet mer effektivt. Jordbruket är såklart en central del i det arbetet. Utsatt för vattenbrist och torka och andra klimatförändringar. Jordbruket är också en av nödvändiga användare av vattnet, så vi behöver gemensamt jobba med detta. I mars höll jag en av de runda bordssamtal med aktörer. Just det var inbjudna från livsmedels- och jordbrukssektorn. Och här tack Lennart som var en av de deltagarna som var med på plats för att bidra till den diskussionen. Jag slogs då och även vid andra tillfällen när jag har träffat många av er här, det är att det finns en sån vilja att vara med, att titta på effektiva lösningar vad det gäller vattenanvändning. Vattenreservoarer, distributionssystem, användandet av vatten. Och då läste jag nyligen en krönika av en av era ledamöter, Elisabeth, som är här idag. Jag har hälsat på dig alldeles nyss. Jag vet inte var du sitter, men i alla fall. Hedén är verksam i Västra Götaland som har gjort ett studiebesök i norra Italien, Bologna. Och det som du satte fingret på i krönikan var att dels så behöver de här frågorna tas på större ansvar. Vi har tagit det för givet. I synnerhet kanske vi i norra Europa. Dels att vi behöver ha en strategi om hur vi långsiktigt ser till att vi investerar i det här området. Så att det är väl lite grann, den krönikan samlar väl ungefär vad jag hoppas kunna lägga fram nästa vecka i den strategin. Jag vill också säga att det är en första steg på en lång resa. Avslutningsvis några ord om finansiering. För mig är det tydligt när vi pratar om krav och om vi pratar om skyldigheter att vi också måste prata om incitament. Och en central del av det är såklart finansieringen. Christophe pratade om kappen som vi alla jobbar, eller framförallt Christophe och ni jobbar med, men jag ansvarar också för ett nytt initiativ som kallas naturkrediter. Det här är ett instrument som skulle kunna gynna dem när man vidtar åtgärder som är naturpositiva och där markägare är självklara aktörer i det systemet. Jag tror att det här skulle vara ett nytt sätt att skapa inkomstkällor för markägare och naturvårdare. Jag vet att det finns en del tveksamheter. Jag vill vara tydlig med att det här handlar om frivilligt system där det är tänkt att komplettera finansieringen och skapa möjligheter till nya inkomster. Vi vet att de offentliga medlen inte kommer räcka till allt som vi vill göra. Och vi måste helt enkelt titta på nya olika lösningar för att kunna möjliggöra betalningar för natur- och ekosystemtjänster. Jag ser också en positiv utveckling. Goda exempel, Orsa besparingsskog pratade vi om. Men jag ser fram emot en fortsatt dialog. Det här är några snabba nedslag i vad jag gör om dagarna. Det finns väldigt mycket mer att prata om. Jag har världens längsta titel, men den är ändå för kort. För jag håller också på med en massa andra saker. Jag vet att det är några från Enköping här, så ni vet var jag kommer ifrån. Och för mig är det inte första gången här, men ni som känner Enköping vet att det är pepparrotsstaden. Jag vet att vi konkurrerar med andra runt om i Sverige, men jag vill ändå hävda att det är pepparrotsstaden. Det var ungefär här som våra bönder för länge sedan kom för att leverera sina grödor till vidare färd mot Stockholm. Så att det är inte första gången jag är här. Jag är lite ledsen över att inte kunna ta den snabbaste vägen hem, det vill säga via Mälaren, men nästa gång kanske. Tack så hemskt mycket för att jag fick komma. Ska jag stå kvar?
Ja, du kan stå kvar. Det finns ju en lösning på det, du kan komma tillbaka.
Ja. Ja.
And Christophe, you can join the stage also. So, we have a lot of expectations on you, Jessika, on the environmental commissioner's portfolio. We are not used to be collaborating the way we hope to do with you, so there's a lot of opportunities there also. And we will have time for some questions from the floor also, so you can join the speakers list by your iPads. But first of all, Christophe, I think we have to talk about EU budget.
Jessika as well. Huh?
And we can do it two ways. I can say to you that we need a strong, dedicated CAP budget, and you will say, I agree with you. It's all up to the Council and the Member States, and then end of discussion. So, and you can say you come from a frugal country, so you are one of the problems. But if I promise you that I will work on the Swedish government and lobby them to be a bit less frugal, and understand that a strong EU budget is very important, especially in these times where we have challenges, not only in Sweden around food security and food sovereignty. If I do my work, there's a bit of work doing around the discussions about the single fund and how can we dedicate a ring fence budget for CAP if we will end up with the single fund that will put all the funding together and up to the member states to decide how to use them.
How much time do I have?
As long as you need. So.
Well, first of all, I would like to say we are at the very beginning of that discussion, and so nothing is hammered into stone so far, but you are right. We have a common agriculture policy that is the strongest common policy that we have. And it is as well, clearly, it has treaty objectives, delivering food security, delivering fair income for our farmers, and delivering as well affordable food for our citizens. And I think this is something where we have, over the last more than 60 years, proven that the CAP can deliver on those objectives. So I think it's very important to say that we need to maintain this, and you rightly say so, because we're living in very challenging geopolitical times. We have the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine. We have the United States that is, or at least one man is going a little bit crazy.
Not what it used to be. So.
And I could go on like that. We have as well extreme and ever more frequent extreme weather events. I've now visited the farm. They told, here in Sweden, they told me usually they have in 1 year 600 liters of water per square meter. We are now at the half of the year, we are at 55 liters. So I think as well the farmers here in Sweden start to feel the effects of climate change. So I think we need to be aware that the challenges are becoming bigger. And I think as well, and I said that publicly as well, if we have to feed now more priorities with the same money, then all the priorities will be starving. That's a first point. The second point is also what I said, and the press liked this very much. I said you can't build a continent on an empty stomach.
That's very true, yeah.
Because everybody of us needs to eat and drink 3 times a day at least, and that is not going away. And we have so many other sectors where we are heavily dependent on imports from third countries, semiconductors, energy, and so on. I wouldn't like to let this go out of our hands, that somebody else is controlling the quantity and the quality of the food that we are producing. I also have a very clear steering in my mission letter, which I have the so-called strategic dialogue report, which has been contested by many, but nonetheless on the budget it is very clear that agriculture needs a specific and commensurate budget, and that if additional requirements come, they should come with additional financing. That is, Jessica, if we have additional, we don't have additional financing, then we can't add additional requirements. That would be the other way around there. And then also we have the political guidelines by Ursula von der Leyen herself, who clearly says that she will always fight for the income policy for our farmers. So I think we have a certain security. Now, on this famous single fund that is being discussed, I think the agriculture policy has a lot of specificities, because we have the income it's an income policy, it's an annual payment, not only in the first pillar, but several payments in the second pillar, eco schemes, for example, as well, annual payments. We can't just cut this income, because, as I said before, the banks give a loan on an income expectation. If we cut that, that would be detrimental. Then also in the single fund, the payment of the money would be linked to national reforms that the member states have to make. I can't accept that we say, in that sense, if the member state doesn't do a pension reform, just to say, give an example, then they don't get the money for the farmers. That is unacceptable, so these things need to be out. Then also, as I said, this policy has proven its efficiency and effectiveness over the last more than 60 years. And this is as well the first pillar and the second pillar with rural development. And I think it is very important that we maintain all these tools together. I think that would be my strongest pledge, and that we maintain the financial firing power of it. I think that is very important. If that we can make, then I'm not concerned in or out. That is something to need. So there are a lot of conditions that need to be discussed. But I wouldn't also forget about the rural development part, because some say, well, this is like cohesion policy. For me, it is not. And I also have to say, I met, for example, with the European young farmers, a young Swedish dairy farmer, and she told me, I think she was rather from the north. Is she here?
She might be here.
From Sija.
Yeah.
And you told me, in your region, you have to choose between kids or cows. And I was laughing in the beginning, but it is very true. If you don't have services for childcare in that sense. And you told me you have to drive, I don't know how many kilometers. You can't do that in the morning, come back, in the evening, come back. You don't have that time. And I think that is very important to say that we need to maintain the attractiveness of our rural areas. And that is very important. This morning at the farm as well, they have 4 kids, and they want as well to have certain services, be able from time to time as well, maybe to go to holidays. The old farmers never did that, I know. My father was the same. But I think we have to think about how we can create this as well, and this will be very important, and therefore I believe we need all the existing tools with the financial financing power.
So we both listen to Elisabeth.
But if we don't have kids, we will run out of future generations, so that won't work.
May I add something? Because
before we have a few on the speakers list, can I ask you to go upstairs to the microphone up there and line up? Thomas, you're the first one. And I would also like Katarina and Gabriella to be prepared. So now
just want to add, because I totally agree, but one thing that we work a lot on, and that is also on the simplification, and we working on competitiveness as a whole, and bioeconomy is one big figure, because we know that we also need to boost European economic strength, otherwise we will not have the possibility to do all the things that we need on the security, on preparedness and everything else. So I mean that is one key issue when it comes to what we are doing all the days, I would say. But that was not your question. Just want to say competitiveness, because that's something the Swedish government worked on, the Swedish presidency. I know that for a fact, actually.
As you were there. Thomas, please.
Thank you very much. Very interesting to listen to you and everything you said, because that's what we want to hear. But I had a question. Talk about, Christophe, family farms. What is a family farm in your eyes? For looking myself, I can run 400 or 500 hectares with cereals, 150 cows with my family, maybe one employed, and we talk about having holiday and things like that. For me, that's a family farm. But in Europe, it's different. What is a family farm in your perspective?
Well, this is for me a family farm. It's not the size that determines if you are a family farm or not. So I think as well we have to take account onto the farm structure in each member state, which is largely different. I was now last week in Slovenia. There you have a family farm. The big farms are 50 hectares. And a normal farm in the mountain regions will be 7 to 8 hectares. So this is something different, and I think it is very important that we have this definition as well at the national level. I think, but what is more important to say as well, and that is for me, as I said before, I want that family farms, young and new farmers in regions with natural constraints, but as well I want that active farmers get the money. And that is a huge problem, because we have in many, I went to Ireland, I'll just give you that example. There are 120,000 beneficiaries of the Common Agricultural Policy. But only like 55,000 say, I am an active farmer. Who are the others? And I met an EU civil servant that I knew. He said, well, I inherited 10 hectares from an aunt I didn't even know. So he got the 10 hectares, and what he's doing is there is a farmer bringing for several months his cows on that grassland, and that is sufficient that the guy gets but he is not doing agriculture himself. He has no agriculture output. I give you another example of a former teacher of mine, because the teachers in Luxembourg, they earn quite good money. And he started to buy up a little bit land. He had the farm on his wife's name. Now he's retired. It's now on his name. He bought up to, I think, more or less 50 hectares. It's all in so-called biodiversity programs, where we have a lot in Luxembourg. There are a few like this Highlander with the big horns and the long hair grazing there, but there is no agriculture production. And that guy gets a huge amount per hectare, is driving up the prices for the farmers, is taking the land away for young and new farmers, and that is for me a problem. And there we have to work that the people that are not contributing to the objectives, the treaty objectives, food security, affordable food prices, well, there we have to find solutions that the money goes there where there is effective production. That is, for me, important.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So I look forward to results from you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Katarina, please.
Thank you. My name is Katarina Wolf. I'm the president of the Association of Swedish Young Farmers. Thank you, commissioners. This question is for you, Commissioner Hansen. I think we can both agree that we need to reverse the trend. You talked about generational renewal, and we need more young farmers in the European Union. But right now, there's a lot of uncertainty around the common agriculture policy, and we're getting signals that the budget will decrease for the next period. And I also know that you visit many member countries, many farms. So my question to you is, what connection do you see between a higher amount of ring-fenced money, funds for young farmers, and the actual amount of young farmers in those countries?
Well, the issue of the young farmers, or the challenge to have more young farmers, is a huge one. It's a European problem, but I also see that certain member states are doing better. And when we had the conference on the vision for the future of agriculture and food on the 8th of May in Brussels, I invited as well our Austrian colleague Norbert Tocznik. As I said, here in Sweden, you have, I think, a little bit more than 11% of the young farmers that are below the age of 40. That is not much. It is a little less than the EU average. In Austria, they are the front runners. Let's say they have 24% of farmers below the age of 40. And then I ask myself, what do they different? What do they do better? And there it's not only the little 3% that we have in the common agriculture policy to support young farmers. They are building very heavily on education. I think they have the biggest density of agriculture, agro-environmental, agro-economic schools in the entire Europe. And they are, I think, 73 of them. And they can't help their hands. So many people want to come to these schools. That is one part. So really education, education, education. And they have specific funds as well when young farmers come with new innovative ideas that the bank might not see as economically viable. They give them the opportunity, and it's not a bad thing if you fail in the first time. So they give a lot of those opportunities. Then they have also a retirement scheme, a pension scheme that incentivizes, and as well with tax incentives, that the old farmer is handing over the farm a little bit earlier. And that is working quite well. I know that in Finland they had such a system, it has been abolished, and then the young farmers level went down. So I think that is something where the national politics need to come in as well to cover for that. But in general, I think we have to work on the predictability. And you are right, nobody is going to invest heavily in something where, firstly, the policies might change in 2 or 3 years. That's why I said we have to make an evolution, not a revolution. And then also I think it is very important that we don't just look, let's say now we have the 3%, let's say we go to 5% of the CAP money for young farmers. Young farmers will say, thank you, fine. This covers maybe the inflation that has gone up, but this is not going to make your farm more viable. And there I think, and we talked about bioeconomy, how can we help maybe young farmers? Because when you take over the farm, you will be at your absolute financial limit, most probably, unless you have won in Lotto. But I think there we have to find solutions that, for example, an investment in renewable energy, biogas or whatever, that there you get a severe support, a pre-financing. In Luxembourg we are doing that with pre-financing, and then it is paid back. This is of course an impact, but I think there you have then an income and reduction of costs. When you are doing dairy, the energy cost is quite high. Well, you can reduce something sustainable over the next 20 years and not only over the 5 years. And then also I think we have to ask ourselves the question, this definition of young farmer with the 40 years. It's a little bit weird, I have to say, because when my brother took over our farm, he was already over 40, so he was excluded. And that is normal because when you become a mother or a father at the age of 25, when you will be 65 to retire, well, your kid has already 40 years and will be excluded. And that is something that I think we have to think a little bit more flexible about that, how we can define that. But in general, we need to create better income, less bureaucracy, because that is something nobody chooses the job to fill in papers. You want to produce, you want to live out of your work, out of your business model, and this is the entire environment of that we need to enhance.
Thank you. I see Peter's listening very carefully to your suggestions, so that's good.
He has a lot of ideas, though, Christophe.
Gabriella, please.
Yes, thank you. Gabriella Kalin, LRF Östergötland. And I would like to raise a question about fruit and vegetable sector and the use of plant protection products. And I'm afraid I have to take it in Swedish because otherwise it will be too long. Du nämnde ju, Jessika, pepparrot. Och de här odlingen av små grödor är en väldigt svår verksamhet i Sverige idag på grund av att det är väldigt svårt att få godkännande för vissa bekämpningsmedel som vi då behöver ha, eller växtskyddsprodukter som vi behöver ha för att säkra kvaliteten och därmed säkra att man överhuvudtaget kan få sin produkt såld. Och ja, det finns ju ett system idag där med minor use för att skulle underlätta, men det är fortfarande så att det ska prövas då på nationell eller regionnivå och det blir ofta för dyrt så att de här produkterna då inte blir tillgängliga för odlarna som behöver dem. Istället får man då kanske importera från utanför EU till och med då för att få tag på dem. Och då kanske man använder de här produkter som inte är godkända i EU eller i Sverige. Så det är ett medskick, eller om du vill säga någonting om ni har några planer på hur man kan lösa detta. Tack.
Maybe I should take it in English because it's like I mean, one thing is we know it's also. I mean, me and Christophe working very close together, but also together with Oliver, another colleague, when it comes to pesticides. So we are in this in a lot of us. One thing that maybe bioeconomy could help us, that is to explain on how the situation in Europe now. We have a lot of innovation. But we have a problem, or the problem we often face is that we don't scale it up. And that is what you're a little bit raising on the question that it's too expensive to buy because we don't have the scale. And that is for us, in my way, a little bit odd because we are a huge union, 450 million people. We should have no trade barriers between us. So I think we have a huge opportunity. And my view is that in this challenging time, as Christophe and me have mentioned on war in Ukraine, trade war and so forth, I think we really should take the advantage of using this single market. That will probably a little bit help. But then, of course, we are looking on the export when you talk about the production of these pesticides that we sell to other countries. Of course, that is something that we are taking into account. But we will take that with us. And I will translate it also to English or French maybe later.
Maybe if you allow, I have a few thoughts on that because we have in our vision for the future of agriculture and food, we have addressed two issues. Because we are very quick in the European Union in withdrawing active substances of plant protection products from the market. Sometimes for good scientific reasons, because it's bad for human health, it's bad for pollinators. But on the other side, we are importing the very same agriculture product that is treated with something we have taken off the market. And I say, if it is bad for human health and for pollinators inside the EU, it is as well bad outside the EU. And then it doesn't make sense that we take it in. And that is something where, with our colleague Oliver Vareli, where we are working to have this reciprocity in trade. The second point is the authorizations for plant protection products is done in the European Union, member state by member state.
Yes.
I'm coming from one of the smallest member states. Do you think that a plant protection product producer, manufacturer is coming first to Luxembourg to do the approval? No.
We are just slightly bigger in Sweden.
You are bigger, but I was in Slovenia. Slovenia is also a little bit smaller, but they have the same issue. And the problem is this makes the process immensely expensive, because if you have to do 27 authorization procedures, well, this is way more expensive than just doing one. And I spoke recently to a Dutch biopesticide startup, very small one. They say, and I said, well, how are you going now, the next steps? They say, well, we are going to the US. I said, why are you going to the US? Well, in the US, in less than 12 months, we are on the market with the product. In the EU, you have to do it member state by member state. It takes 5 to 8 years. For a biopesticide, we are not even talking about something from Monsanto or from Bayer or whatever. They firstly don't have the financial means, and they say we are bankrupt by the moment we go to the market. And therefore, I think that we need either something with mutual recognition. That is what Luxembourg usually does. When Germany approves something, we just say, okay, we take it over. That is the one part, but I think we should go, especially for these low-risk pesticides, for a European-wide authorization that has to be done once. I think we have the European Food Safety Agency that is, in my opinion, understaffed. Why isn't it possible that countries like Germany, like France, like Poland, the big agriculture countries, they have these experts, they have their authorities. Why can't they just have a national expert posted for the approval to the EFSA, and they do it for the entire European Union together faster, and you will have the tools. But that is really an issue, and we have many, we always say, okay, the biopesticides are coming. No, they are too slow. Sometimes they are not as efficient as the classical ones as well. And I think what we clearly said, we are not taking any more products off the market if the alternative is not yet there. And there, of course, our colleague Oliver Vareli and his DG have to contribute very strongly, because he's the main responsible for that.
But the key problem is that the EU legislation only allows the national authorities to do a risk assessment. They are not allowed to make a bigger impact assessment. And that's why if there's a risk, the plant product is out. Yeah. And that means that the entire production of that crop is out also in some cases. So you have a job to do that.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Also, thank you.
Thank you very much. Very reassuring answer. Thank you.
Helene, please go ahead. We have actually, according to the program, 2 minutes late. So
okay.
Short questions, short answers. We will have some extra minutes for you soon.
Thank you. My name is Helen. I come from the west coast of Sweden, and I'm a dairy farmer. From the area that I have my farm, we have looked very much at the water quality and the water issue. And as you said, Jessika, we are very dependent on water on our farms. No, I don't have all the technical words in English, so this will be like a Swedish-English version. So Jessika and Palle may have to help me, because I just sat and Googled them up, so I don't know if they're the right
speaks many
words.
languages.
I speak Dutch and German, so
and
I
Italian
understand a little bit of the Swedish.
In Sweden, we have from the SAVAGE system official numbers, and we have counted on them, and we can see that the swells we have from these systems it's a large amount of water that comes out in our system that comes on our land. In one community, we had 1.8 billion liters of water, and it's not clean water. So even if I, on my farm, are very concerned about my water, the water from the community is not so very clean. So I think we need to do something about this. We need to talk about this, because also it's more than 50% of all that water that comes down that goes directly into the system, and that's not so good. So we need to have this in mind when we talk about the water quality that we work so much with, but it also have other people who needs to start working with it so we can get some clean water. Thank you.
No, it's totally a start. I mean, absolutely, and that is the challenge. We have both problem with quantity of water, sometimes too much and sometimes too little, and sometimes on the same time. That is something that we know. And you go later to Cyprus this week, and they will tell you another story that they face than we face. But we also have problem with quality of water. And in Sweden and a lot of other places, we have problem, of course, with PFAS that we all know about, but there are also a lot of other issues when it comes to quality. And of course, I meet also the treatment facilities, and in Sweden and a lot of member states have it also on a municipality level and also on a regional level. So it's really complex, and that is what I said. This is the beginning of a journey that we need to do together. It's not like only policymakers, not only farmers, not only consumers. We all need to be on this trip. But the problem is really difficult because it's sometimes also really sensitive to talk about the polluter pays principle. I mean, who is the polluter here and who is going to take the cost of the cleaning of the water? Ultimately, it's the taxpayers, right? So I thank you for raising this, because I know that you need fresh and clean water. And that is something that we all need, actually. I mean, we know no water, no. I mean, we are depending on it definitely. So thank you for raising, and we have a challenge, but also an opportunity. Again, innovation in Europe is fantastic when it comes to water, but the problem again is that we don't scale it up.
If I may compliment, there are sometimes as well legislation that came out the last years out of the big machinery where we both are now in. And I would like just to mention one, the sustainable use of pesticides. That was the so-called SUR. And I was at that time still a member of the European Parliament. And when I was going through that document, it was about reducing pesticides in the agriculture sector by 50%. That was the starting point. With the right reference years, I was talking back in time to my Luxembourgish farmers, they say we can do it. But what struck me there was we have to reduce pesticides. But then you look at what was exempted from the scope of that proposal. And you had, for example, all the infrastructures. So the railway tracks, for example, were exempted. And I say, well, a railway track is not producing food. And in my country, for example, or in Belgium, the railways are usually in the valley, close to a river, on these stones. When you spray there, it is immediately in the water. Why shouldn't they contribute to the reduction? And that is another sector, the public sector, where there is a lot of use in this legislation, for example, that has been kicked down the road, so it's off the table. But this was something what I couldn't understand. Why do we only focus on farmers? Farmers don't use more pesticides than they need because it has a cost. But on the public infrastructure, no limitations. And that is something I don't understand. And I think there we have as well to be pragmatic, to reduce where it is the less needed. And I think there are other alternatives that could be there, because the farmer don't just use what he needs. And this is to ensure production as well. And there we have to be quite attentive that such legislation will not be coming where we focus just on one polluter and not on all the polluters.
I think we have 3 questions left, and we are already into the coffee break. So I think we close the speakers list now, but Ruben, please.
I'm not so comfortable to take this in English, so it will be in Swedish. Sorry, Christophe.
It's okay.
Jessica, när man på EU-nivå bestämmer nya bestämmelser, exempelvis restaureringslagar och artskydd och så vidare, så skickas det till varje medlemsland och så implementeras det av regering och myndigheter. Och så, om jag förstår det här, så rapporteras det tillbaks på olika sätt också från olika länder, vilket jag tycker är mycket olyckligt. Och då undrar jag så här, är man otydlig nog från EU-håll när man skickar de här bestämmelserna till varje land? Kan man bli tydligare med det? Så att det inte blir för bred tolkning av det hela, för det blir ju en jättebred spann med tolkning. Och jag skulle önska att man hade större samsyn om hur man ser på det här. Ja, ungefär det.
Okay, can I take the answer in English so everybody... Okay.
Your choice.
Thank you. No, because it's about implementation. Of course, then we have had a lot of discussions on the nature restoration law and other laws, maybe mostly also our country. And of course, we have taken an oath in our Luxembourg, of course, that we are now representing all the citizens in all of Europe. So one question I often get is about how will I now be towards the Swedish government. And of course I treat everybody alike. And I will say one thing, that I was my, this one I don't know in English, käpphäst. Sorry.
What's that?
What is käpphäst?
I don't have the slightest idea. something very important.
So?
Yeah.
No, the thing I tried to say all the time when I was a minister or was in the opposition in the Riksdag, I was like, I think that every member state, I mean, we decide on different directives, but I think it's important that everybody implements them and let them enforce them in the member states in the similar way, because otherwise the single market is not single. And that comes to a lot of things that you, of course, also work with. So that if with my checktest then is still the same one, that I'm also ask and have a good dialogue with all member states on how they implement different legislations that we have. Of course, with that said, we know, and now I again take Sweden and Cyprus as an example, because there is not always there is one size fits all. But with that said, I think it's important that we of course, we can certainly be more clarified when we do the directives. But I would say that is also for the co-legislators. I mean, the Council, the Swedish government is represented in the Council, and the European Parliament when they decide, because it is that the Commission put forward proposals, and then there is negotiation. So I think that obviously it's a possibility for improvement, but I would say that enforcement and implementation is key if we're going to make this single market really single.
Sebastian, please. I think the translation is, there's no direct translation, but it's something that the politicians keep repeating all the time.
Hörlurar.
Thank you. My name is Sebastian Remjes, the Vice President of the Federation for Young Swedish Farmers. And my question is concerning one of the major challenges for young farmers is access to land. And we know this is a European-wide problem, but we know from Swedish young farmers that 2/3 of young farmers see this as a major obstacle. However, land policy is generally a national competence, so there is some complexity there for you to work in that, Christophe. But could you please still explain what can you, as the Commissioner for Agriculture, do when it comes to access to land for young and new farmers? Thank you.
Yes, you're right. You can't produce anything if you don't have land, and you can't start a farm if you don't have land. And it is getting ever more complicated. There are different reasons. On the one side, it is because you have a certain pressure that farmers need to continue to farm because they don't have a proper retirement or not sufficient. That is one of the reasons. Another reason as well is that there are sometimes other economic sectors that are investing into the land where a farmer cannot compete with. And then, of course, we see this in many member states. When I will go soon as well to Romania and Bulgaria, there are a lot of foreign investors buying up the land and making it impossible for local farmers to buy this land. And then, of course, we are working now on an observatory, on a land observatory, to see exactly who is investing into land and who has the possession of the land. But that, of course, you rightly say, it is a national competence, the land, and you can't force anybody to sell the land or to rent out the land. But I think what I said before, when we speak about who is an active farmer, because in practice, I know that from the country I know best, Luxembourg, there are several farmers. They are officially declaring their land, and they have a lot of them. And then the little parcels, the little plots of land that they don't want to do well, they let then a young farmer do it. So the young farmer doesn't even get the payment for it. He or she needs it for his animals, and this is something where we need to think about. But this definition of active farmer is as well at member state level where this is decided, and I think there lies the most of potential to see who is the beneficiary. I was always thinking as well, but we can't do that. We need an age degressivity when it comes to the direct payments. That would be helpful.
You're among friends, so please talk.
But of course, you know that is not possible. This would be discriminatory, but that would indeed incentivize, let's say when you are 65 or 70, that then you say, okay, then I leave the land because I don't get any more subsidies. My son or my daughter, this of course we can't do it. But I think the general problem is, and that is why certain people think as well about moving away from the hectare-based payment. But as I said, it is a difficult choice to make because investments have been done. You can't move entirely away. Our structures of farms are evolving. You have as well, you might have a farm that is producing vegetables on, let's say, 10 hectares that is more productive than a cereal farm on 400 hectares. That it can possibly that the economic output is bigger on that one, and that is something where it is very difficult. But we are working as well, and that's why I said as well, we need to think at the national policy level if there are incentives for retirement schemes, incentives for handing the land over earlier. That is something where we really need to develop, and where the most competences lie in the member states.
Thank you. The definition of active farmer is one of our käpphästar.
This word you really need to take with you.
Käpphästar, you see?
I think one of the problems is actually that the older generation, they cannot afford to stop farming. So we have to make sure that they have the possibility to save a pension fund. So, Nils, last question, please.
Hello, my name is Nils. I represent 12% of this country in land in the middle of Sweden. And I would like to talk a little bit about risk management. We were talking in your presentation, Christophe, about how agricultural political can be a leverage to gain access to other capital. It becomes a sort of security for our farmers to become a farmer or grow their farms. But we see in our regions, where mostly rural areas, that the economical markets are looking into the structural securities, land or the land's economical values only, not on what we produce on the land, and that becomes a problem for our farmers, for our future farmers, to not have that security to gain access to buy farms or whatever structural solution we will see in the future. And I was thinking to the both of you, what is your thinking, what are your thoughts about risk management for the future farmers, and risk sharing within the CAP or within the European Union about these topics? Thank you.
We should start.
Shall I start? Okay, no, I start by the last point you made on the risk sharing and the risk management. I think that is something where we have to be bolder, because we, in general, we have, of course, a lot of more pressure on the agriculture sector. We have said we're losing crops because of droughts, because of floods, because of lack of plant protection products, and so on, animal diseases. And we have a tiny little agriculture reserve of 450 million annually for 27 member states. And I have to say this is really not sufficient when we say about the risk management. When I went to Valencia, they had the huge floods last year in October. More than 220 people died. There were and even 4 months after that catastrophe, I was on the spot. You could see the entire hills with citrus were going down. There were huge La Albufera, which they're producing rice. There were the maritime containers still. It was a disaster, and I could give them 68 million, which is the biggest one I ever paid. But nonetheless, this is not sufficient to restore the production capacity. And therefore, I think what is very important is that we work on a better risk management. In the simplification package, we give the member states now the possibility to use 3% of their money for such, let's say, compensations or other schemes when such catastrophes happen. But also, I think it is important that we think about insurance and reinsurance systems. That is very important because currently only a little bit over 20% of the agriculture production has an insurance policy. And that is, of course, not sufficient. Why is that so? In certain member states, for example, there are companies proposing an insurance against hail damage, for example. In others, I was now in Slovenia, they don't have it. They are trying with other means, but this is something where we need to work on that side, that there is as well an insurance scheme, and I'm working very closely with the European Investment Bank to develop such products that then can be used in the member states. Currently, only over 20% of the entire agriculture production has such an insurance. We need to raise this, and there comes in as well private capital, and that is something where we need to work. Also, I think it is very important to work on adaptation and investment. For example, if you are a fruit producer, for example, you might need nets to protect. You might need sprinklers in order to protect the blossom if there is frost at a certain moment. So there is a lot of things that can be done. You had the second point also on the difficulties for land. That was the second point you had. Yes, so I think I answered it a little bit in the first point. It is a huge challenge for the financing. What we have done as well is that we have, again with the European Investment Bank, set up a program of 3 billion euros of loans specifically for young and for female farmers, because female farmers have even bigger difficulties to access financing. I was surprised by that, but it seems to be a fact. And this is a 3 billion package that we have already now leveraged. But I think it's not sufficient, but this helps already to bring in as well the necessary security as well when it comes to investment into land.
And I just want to add, now I need to help because I read an article and I read a lot. Gröna glastak och stövlar som skaver.
Yes, that's a report from...
Green glass ceiling and boots that skaver.
It's a...
It's not going good, my English today, but anyway.
It's about gender balance.
I think, of course, and this I just want to emphasize the problem that females also have when it comes to equity. And one thing that we, again, being Swedish, we also try to also emphasize the capital union markets. And here we actually have a good system in Sweden that we try to export. Just one thing to add is, and that will maybe conclude from my side, that when we talk about the MFF, of course, you talk a lot about the CAP, and we are all having these discussions. I'm talking about also how can we ensure that we have money when it comes to investment in nature, because, as I said, no nature, no food production, and resilience and preparedness. And that is important also when it comes to insurances and risk management, because we see places in Europe today that it's not possible to get insurances, actually, because the risk is too high. So that is something why I think that we need to invest in nature. One thing that I also would like to, and this is also a little bit management, because one thing that I think that everybody here together, Lennart, Palle, and we showed, Christophe, is that we work together in dialogue, and that is what we also think that we show together to be here together, because we cannot do this in silos. I mean, I cannot do it in my silo, you cannot do it in your silo. We need to do it together. So that is something that I think will not solve your problem on the risks, but I think that is the only way forward.
Thank you very much. There is no room for more questions, but I will send a message to you. And we really appreciate the work you do on simplification, but to be very honest, we also need deregulation. I can make quite a long list of EU proposals and legislation that is...
Write them down.
That is actually... that's my speaking notes. But we have the deforestation, the taxonomy, soil monitoring, forest monitoring. All of them are big challenges, and they will create a lot of administration without very, very little positive environmental and impact on competitiveness. So simplification is very good. We will need some deregulation also.
I think when you are right, you are right. We can cut, and with this package that I've now presented on the 14th of May, we are cutting administrative burden. But this shall then not lead that on other parts we are adding again more. And this is something I think I'm quite a long time already in politics, and everybody always promises simplification, but in the end you might cut a little bit here, but then you add another layer there, and that is something we need to avoid. And I think that is something systematic that we have to ask ourselves with everything that is now has good objectives. We have to ask, is this contributing to a reduction of administrative burden? If the answer is no, then we have to think again, I would say.
One of my checklists are that simplification is the most difficult thing that you can do. So.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We have a small bag here with some Swedish premium products.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully you can bring them on your flight back to Brussels.
Yes, we need to go. Tack snälla.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Christophe.
Thank you very much.
And 15 months from now, in October 2026, we will host the Copa Cocheca Congress here in Sweden, so we would like to see you back there, both of you.
Caro will note down the date.
Yep. And you're welcome anytime in between that also. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tack.
Ja, nu är vi långt över tiden, men vi har en kaffe.